The S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, that's what we're talking about here on the day. And today's video has to be pretty short, sweet to the point. I got to get out of here very quickly. Like, subscribe, do what you got to do. We're going to get right into it. Now, the first thing I do want to mention is what's happening here on the Nasdaq. Again, Nasdaq, big tech. I think big tech continues to be like the weakest, right? This is something we haven't really seen all year long. You look at ES, you've been holding it relatively well. You continue to hold this little bit of a support that you have right about here. As you can see, you also do have a clear-cut demand here as well, going back down to like 45.24 to 4,500, basically flat. This is going to be your overall demand where you're coming into. So a little bit of support, demand down here. And that's ultimately what's happening and taking place here. You get a better view here too at the Dow, which continues to push up. Today being probably the worst that you've had in a while. Now tomorrow, very big stuff coming out here tomorrow. Tomorrow, you have non-farm payrolls coming out. You have your unemployment numbers, I do believe. I want to say, your jobless claims right there. And then you should have your unemployment numbers as well. I could be wrong, but I'm like 99.9% sure unemployment numbers do come out tomorrow. I'll have that checked out and updated for tomorrow for you guys as well. So that's coming out tomorrow. Now, IWM has been one of the big stories here. The Russell, you had a clear breakout above the 200 pushing up. A really nice breakout today, and you kind of came back down to these lows. Now, one thing I do want everyone to be on the lookout for is a retest of the 200 SMA right about there. That's what you're looking for. You go on the daily time frame and you look. Every breakout that's happened here has been met by a quick retest, okay? I just want to highlight you. I mean, you can see across the board, and most of your big moves are on the retest. They're not on the initial breakout. Just saying there. You go all the way back basically into 2021, way back here, 2020. You had your breakout, retest, shot up, retest again, shot up even more. So again, I don't think the story is going to change on this go. So I definitely would be looking for that retest area around 180 on IWM. The retest area will be very important. Okay, a little bit further as well. DXY, bonds, etc. The dollar. This is something that we were concerned about. This is the only bad looking thing here on the market, except with Nasdaq kind of consolidating at these highs, staying in the range 15.8 to 16.1, 300-point range there, right? So we go into DXY, you're trying to push up, and you still are. You're trying to get back above local highs back here, November 22nd. But the thing here that's weird is you look at the 30-year yield, pathetic. You're getting shot down. You're going into the 200 SMA. The 10-year, pathetic, getting shot down. So this is overall, that's bullish in my opinion. From we look at the yields, they're getting shot down. That's helping interest rates, just to let you know. You have oil obliterated, going back down to 66, demolished there. You go back into DXY. Again, this is like the only thing that's counterintuitive to everything else. So very important to take into account everything that's happening here. This is the only area of somewhat confusion. Definitely worth mentioning. You do have your Fed meeting next Wednesday, so all this, will definitely play a toll going into that. But I still think inflation numbers are going to show good, outlooks, great things across the board there as well. And I think the Fed is going to be happy. I think a pause continues, and I don't think we are going to get a raise on those rates either. Okay, things to all be looking at. VIX sitting at pathetically low levels. We would love to see VIX get a bounce, because if VIX bounces, I think we have more room of upside on the Nasdaq. So again, other things we're looking at there. So broad viewpoint, that's that. Now, today we did have a little bit of interesting behavior. I think probably today was your worst action that you've seen. Reason being, you go to the daily candles here, and this was your worst daily candles that you've seen, right? So now you get into the argument like with something like Microsoft, and you're going to, again, I never want to seem biased. So again, I want to highlight that you could be bear flagging here. Microsoft, number one. Okay, Apple. Now, Apple, not a bear flag. You just hit the big resistance at, 194.4. You zoom out here, boom, it was your high right there. I mean, you hit your level to the tick, right? So you're kind of just coming into key levels, but you still make higher highs there. Okay, NVIDIA, pretty terrible, right? If you break 450, kind of a clear-cut short into 440, possibly even lower, back down to 437, okay? You have AVGO earnings as well, Broadcom earnings tomorrow. Those go bad, you're pushing probably back down to 800. So it's really important to understand where we're at and how we're moving here. And again, even for myself, I have a viewpoint of expecting upside, expecting more love to come into the market, especially from the fundamental viewpoints of what's happening here. But I'm not naive. I'm not blindly going long. I'm not trading based on a bias. I'm watching what's happening and watching what's taking place. That's why when we look at all the trades, even inside Discord, things I'm looking at there, I'm not getting too aggressive. I'm staying pretty passive. I'm just letting this range do its thing. It's boring. It is what it is, though. Okay. Now, what I will say, one sector that continues to look crazy is the cloud sector, CrowdStrike, CRM, all those names. Those names are just going crazy, going vertical. They've had a pretty great run. Now, CRM, I will say, you start to break back below 248. This thing might get crushed back down to 231 and start to fill that gap. Datadog, another big name I want to mention here as well. Kind of a crazy chart. You go to the weekly. You start to break and hold above some of these levels, and again, you have more room to the upside, but you're just not there yet, and so far you are getting rejected, okay? So these are all things we're looking at, and so far right now, everything is getting rejected. Everything is getting pushed back towards the downside. There are some names that I'm liking for upside potential, but again, I just don't think it's the time to start going over those just yet, okay? I want to be very clear about that. So right now, the story I'm pushing is caution, 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 caution. Although I don't believe we're going to tank, I don't believe anything crazy is going to happen. That's just my big thing that I want to push here is be very cautious, especially if we're going to get this retest of the 200 SMA there, okay? I want to highlight that. I do want to say, too, if you get a 200 SMA test, it's not going to be beautiful on the weekly here on IWM either. It's going to be a very gross weekly. So that's another thing that we will have to take into account there as well. So as this week progresses, I think things are getting more and more shaky. However, I do believe when we go into the Fed meeting, it's going to go well. We're going to be happy about that also, okay? So that's my viewpoint. That's what I'm watching for here. Really short video. I'm sorry for you guys. That's the main thing that I'm viewing here. If you have questions, comment down below. But these are the main visuals. And again, I'll give you a really quick rundown here on Qs and SPY as well. So again, something that we've been watching for here, right? For instance, on Qs, you wanted to see that mount here of 388, and so far you're just getting rejected out of here. You look at the daily, rejected. Today, you get above it and then push right back down. So you want to get back above that 388 level there. Going into SPY, right? You want to hold above this level right here, about 453, and you're doing it right now. But again, you need to get above, 459 to get that bullish momentum to push back into highs, hopefully. So these are things that you have to be taking into account, and we're just not doing it, and we're just not holding those levels. Now, one thing I will say is you had decent volume like on the first, but besides that, that was Friday, I believe. Volume is kind of just slowed down progressively, 72, 69, 61 now. So you don't like to see that, and that just comes to the viewpoint of just chop, chop, chop. And things that you have to be paying attention to closely there. So again, volume reducing into FOMC, you're getting pretty trash price action. SPY's basically been in a range from 455 to highs of 459, a $4 range there. Qs have been in a range from essentially 384 to highs of locally 391, back and forth. So you're just kind of ping-ponging back and forth here. And again, I always say this is where traders lose all their money. I can't emphasize that enough. Don't get crazy. Don't get over aggressive here. I'm super interested in small caps, names like Upstart, Affirm, etc. But one thing that I will say is like even here on something like Upstart, right? Something that I'm interested. I mentioned a trade I'm interested here in the Discord, right? You want to hold above like that 335, 70 range. But this is the dangers here of the small mid caps that you have to be aware of too, right? Is that you can get a push up and you can push right back down, and you kind of saw it happen on Affirm as well. But the reward potential is definitely there, and especially something like Upstart, right? Because if Upstart starts to hold above that level, when we go back to the daily, things could get crazy. This is the definition of illiquidity above $39. So this is where you start to get excited, but you also have to keep your head on a swivel, be protective of your portfolio, your money, because at the end of the day, what's the number one rule? Protect your capital. That's what keeps you in the game. That's what keeps you making money in the long term and in the long run. Have a good one, traders.